Friends, I welcome you for our India's Knowledge Series video number 13. In this video, we will be discussing at length how the borrowing cost when a company or entity has taken a loan for the purposes of construction of an asset or acquisition of an asset or production of an asset has to be dealt with, whether it has to be charged to the profit and loss account or whether it can be accrued as cost of the asset itself. We made a very passing comment in respect of this particular standard when we were discussing how to account for inventories as per Ind AS 2, where we said if it takes substantial period of time, the borrowing cost has to be capitalized or otherwise it will be charged to P&L. Similarly, we also had a passing comment with respect to capitalization of borrowing cost, when it has to be commenced, when it has to be suspended, when it has to be ceased to be capitalized, when we were discussing another important standard, Ind AS 16, property, plant and equipment. And at the time, I was mentioning that we will have a detailed discussion of this particular concept when we are discussing Ind AS 23. So today is the time for discussing Ind AS 23 borrowing cost with respect to determination of the borrowing cost, with respect to accounting of the borrowing cost, whether as capitalization or it should be expensed with, and what is the guidances for that. We will discuss this. Before we proceed to the standard, it is my duty to express my sincere thanks to all of you who are watching this Ind AS Knowledge Series videos and also sharing with many of your friends, and also for giving me your valuable inputs, comments and suggestions. And also in some cases you also raise certain questions by giving some facts and circumstances of the case. All those things are helping me to improve my presentation for the standards to come, and also encouraging me that whatever efforts which I am putting in is not going waste, and it actually results in a huge level of improvement in the knowledge of the professionals as well as students when it comes to Ind AS. Friends, we should not stop at that level. That is what many of you are suggesting to me, and you are suggesting to me that we should think about enhancing the people to whom this is actually going. And the suggestion which is coming is that can we improve the subscriber base of the channel, our channel on Ind AS Knowledge Series. And many of you have suggested that we will refer this channel to all our friends and asking them to be a subscriber for this channel. Again, I'm very much thankful to you for expressing that type of attitude to ensure that the knowledge is reaching a larger level of audience. So with that brief introduction of this standard, let us go into the structure in which we are going to see this entire standard. The first thing which we will try to understand is what is the scope of this particular standard and when the standard will be applied, And what do you mean by borrowing cost according to the standard? When we are saying borrowing cost, I am not using the word interest. I'm using the word borrowing cost because the standard prescribes the word or defines the word borrowing cost rather than simply using the word interest. That means borrowing cost is much larger term than the term interest. So we will try to understand what is the composition of the items which can be included in borrowing cost. And as we were discussing in Ind AS 2 as well as Ind AS 16 and also in the preamble to this video, that only if the borrowing costs are attributable to a qualifying asset, it can be capitalized, otherwise it should be expensed with. Due to this peculiar situation, we should necessarily understand what is the meaning of qualifying asset. So we will look into that with a lot of illustrations, case studies and examples. Again, when we are funding the development of an asset, or acquisition of an asset, or production of an asset, what it happens is we may raise specific borrowing. Maybe I take a term loan or external commercial borrowing for funding a particular asset or group of asset, or it may not be one single or one-to-one specific borrowing. It may be a case of where the company has taken many borrowings and it is not possible to establish a one-to-one relationship towards the asset which has been uh, developed or produced or acquired. So we have to see how a specific borrowing cost has to be accounted for and what is the accounting treatment for borrowing cost when the entity is having general borrowings and it cannot be attributed to single asset. So what is the accounting treatment or what is the guidance which is available? And then we should understand when the borrowing cost can be commenced to be capitalized. So what is the commencement date of capitalization of borrowing cost? What are all the conditions attached to that? We will discuss. And there are some guidances in this standard which says that the capitalization of borrowing cost should be suspended in certain circumstances. We will try to understand those circumstances and we will try to apply that based on certain case studies. How long I can continue to capitalize the borrowing cost? Is there any particular point at which I have to cease the capitalization of borrowing cost and treat the subsequent borrowing cost or subsequent period borrowing cost in as an expenditure in the profit and loss account? So what is the point at which I have to cease the capitalization? We will see. Again, we will see with a lot of examples. Naturally, we wanted to understand what is the significant differences between AS 16 borrowing cost and Ind AS 23 borrowing cost, and how the accounting treatment differs between IGAAP and Ind AS. Similarly, we wanted to understand, is there any significant differences between income computation and disclosure standard and Ind AS, so that it will have an impact on the taxable profit and the deferred taxes, as the case may be, when we are accounting for taxes as per Ind AS 12. And finally, having understood what is a borrowing cost, having understood what is a qualifying asset, having understood how we have to recognize the borrowing cost arising out of specific borrowing or general borrowing, when to start, when to suspend, and when to cease the capitalization, we have to come to the last phase of the discussion, which should be what are the major disclosures required as per Ind AS 23. So with this structure, let us go into our scope of this particular Ind AS 23. So this standard is applicable when you are accounting for borrowing cost. It is not talking about just accounting for borrowing cost in respect of qualifying asset. It simply says that whenever an entity wanted to account for the borrowing cost, it has to apply this particular standard. There are some scope exclusions which has been given. What it says is that if the qualifying asset is not measured at historical cost, but it is measured at fair value, then you should not capitalize the borrowing cost. The common sense is very easy to understand the logic behind this. The common sense says that since the qualifying asset itself is fair valued and it is shown at the fair value of the asset, there is no additional cost which can be attributed, because it should be stated at fair value according to the accounting treatment. No more further cost will be added. That is the reason why borrowing cost in respect of qualifying asset which is measured at fair value will not be added to the cost of the asset. It will be charged to the P&L account. An entity manufactures certain components, but at the same time, from the date of manufacture and to the date of sale, there is a substantial time which has been spent. For example, assuming that one entity is a new entity which has commenced its commercial operations, but for the purposes of logistics, it requires a minimum quantity to be manufactured. So it continues its production of that parts or components, but it's not making any sales for 3 months, where it wanted to accumulate the minimum quantity which can be sent in an economic way through logistics arrangement. So in that case, large quantities are manufactured, but delivery time or the sales time takes a substantial period of time. It is not one single asset, but large quantities are manufactured. In that case, it is nothing but you are manufacturing products. It is not manufacturing of an asset. To that extent, that will be totally outside the scope of this. And at the same time, when I am saying inventory is also an asset for which there is a concept of qualifying asset which is there. But what it says that inventory itself should take substantial period of time for the purposes of ready for the intended sale. So in this case, it's manufactured and the sale has been deferred. So accordingly, if quantities are manufactured in large volume and the sales is deferred for a substantial period of time, those inventories are not eligible for capitalization of the borrowing cost. That's the second scope exclusion. And the third scope exclusion which says is that you cannot consider any actual cost of equity or imputed cost of equity. What do you mean by cost of equity? When I borrow funds, maybe through a term loan, or maybe through a working capital loan, or maybe I'm taking a borrowing by issue of debentures. So there is a cost of debt, which is nothing but the interest payable on that contracted loan or the bond. At the same time, a company issues equity. If the equity is not issued, but it has been raised as a bond, there will be an interest cost. So can I consider a notional interest on the equity outstanding, because it is used for the purpose of construction of an asset or development of an asset or production of an asset? So in that case, whether the notional interest loss or in respect of the equity which is not being used for generating cash flows but used for construction of an asset or acquisition of an asset, whether that cost should be notional cost has to be computed and added to the cost of the borrowing cost as per Ind AS 23. The standard very clearly says even the actual cost of equity or the imputed cost of equity should not be part of the borrowing cost as per Ind AS 23. Now, let us understand what is the core principle of Ind AS 23. The core principle of Ind AS 23 says that is the borrowing cost are directly attributable to the acquisition, construction or production of a qualifying asset. So what it happens is, here we have to see a lot of concepts are coming in. Borrowing cost should be directly attributable, first thing. and attributable to what? To the acquisition, that is purchase, construction, that is a development, or production. Maybe an inventory is produced, or a self-constructed asset is being developed, or any other production of an item, of an asset, which is eligible to be considered as a qualifying asset. So directly attributable borrowing cost for the acquisition, construction, or production, and it should be relating to a qualifying asset. So now let us understand what it says. If this condition is satisfied, yes, it's a borrowing cost directly attributable to acquisition, construction, and production of a qualifying asset, then the borrowing cost will be capitalized as part of the cost of that asset. That means I will capitalize the borrowing cost. In all other circumstances, it will be charged to the profit and loss account. If I'm saying it's a borrowing cost, but not directly attributable to a qualifying asset, in that case, it should be charged to the profit and loss account. The principle is very simple. If it is relating to qualifying asset, capitalize. If it is not relating to qualifying asset, charge off to the profit and loss account. When we are using the word directly attributable, it's important to understand what you mean by directly attributable. What it says is that if this qualifying asset is not acquired or constructed or produced, this borrowing cost will not be there. So in simple terms, I have a qualifying asset on which I am incurring expenditure. In that case, any borrowing cost is directly attributable to that particular qualifying asset or assets, as the case may be. Suppose if the expenditure on the qualifying asset is itself is not made, then the borrowing cost can be totally avoided because there is no need for taking a loan. That is what this says. Every borrowing cost should be directly attributable. Otherwise, it should be totally avoidable in case there is no qualifying asset. So there should be qualifying asset, there should be expenditure on qualifying asset, and there should be a borrowing cost. If all these things are there, then the core principle says capitalize if it is a qualifying asset or charge it to the profit and loss account. Now, let us have some quick questions for us to understand. It started construction of a property and an item of production equipment. That means building is also being constructed and also a machinery is being constructed. Both the projects are financed by external borrowing. That means it's not through equity, but it's from borrowings. Management has chosen a policy for capitalizing the borrowing cost relating to property, but not for the machinery. Machinery, they wanted to charge it off to the P&L account, but the borrowing cost relating to property, that's a building, they wanted to capitalize. Is it correct? Here, what the core principle we have said, if the borrowing cost is directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset. In this case, both the property as well as production equipment is considered as a qualifying asset, and this borrowing cost is directly attributable to the acquisition of or construction of the qualifying asset. So if it is relating to a qualifying asset, the related borrowing cost should be capitalized. I cannot take a policy for capitalization in respect of one item of qualifying asset and for the other I will charge it off to P&L. It is not possible because it is not an option to capitalize the borrowing cost attributable to a qualifying asset. It is a mandatory requirement that borrowing cost in respect of a qualifying asset must be capitalized, and accordingly the stand taken by the entity is incorrect because it has to consider both the entire borrowing cost relating to which is attributable directly for the construction of the property as well as the machinery for capitalization as per Ind AS 23. For a simple reason, capitalization is an accounting principle and not an option which has been given to the entity. Let us understand some of the key definitions. What do you mean by borrowing cost? This is the reason why I said I'm not using the word interest, but I'm using the word borrowing cost. Borrowing cost is interest and any other cost which has been incurred in connection with borrowing of funds. Any cost. Let's see some examples. You may be aware of it, but let us see some examples also. The second important point which we have to understand is what do you mean by qualifying asset? Qualifying asset is an asset which necessarily takes a substantial period of time to ready for its intended use or intended sale. When I'm saying intended use, it is nothing but a property, plant and equipment which has been acquired, constructed or produced. When I'm saying the asset takes a substantial period of time to get ready for the intended sale, means I'm developing or producing certain finished product which takes a substantial period of time, right from the raw material stage to the finished product stage where it can be sold. So this time period, if it is substantial, then the related asset is considered as a qualifying asset. The question comes is, what do you mean by substantial period of time? Ind AS 23 is not specifically defining what is a substantial period of time, considering how it has been defined by our AS 16. In AS 16, as an explanation, it says a substantial period of time normally considered as 12 months and above, unless a shorter period is also can be considered based on the facts of the case. So it is not a rule that it should be 12 months and above. It can be even lower period considered as a substantial period of time where the asset is ready for the intended sale or intended use. So whether Ind AS 23 has a similar explanation, but it not having any similar explanation, it simply says it is a substantial period of time from the start of the production or acquisition or construction till such time it is ready for the intended use or intended sale. That means it is a major judgment which the management has to do based on the facts and evidences available to consider a particular asset as having taking substantial time to get ready for the intended use or intended sale. So it is again left to the management. And to that extent, even sometimes a 4 months or 5 months period can also be considered as a substantial period of time. The management is able to demonstrate the appropriateness of that. You may wonder how it is possible 5 months or 6 months can also be. Suppose if the entity is a new entity where it constructs and it has taken a very huge loan, if we are asking the entire interest to be charged to the profit and loss account, it will result in negative profits in the initial years, which may not be a correct accounting treatment considering the specific facts and circumstances of that particular case. So that in that case, substantial period of time, that may be the reason why Ind AS 23 has not specifically mentioned what is a substantial period of time, but leaving it to the judgment of the management. But it has to be demonstrated. That is very important. So now we have seen what is borrowing cost, what is qualifying asset. And we also know the core principle that if the borrowing cost is relating to a qualifying asset, then it will be capitalized. Otherwise, it will be charged to the profit and loss account. Very simple process which we have understood as of now. Now, let us take some examples to understand whether these are considered as borrowing cost. What is the examples for borrowing cost? As we have said, interest and any other cost related to the borrowing. So it may be processing fee or any other documentation fee or arrangement fee, if somebody is arranging this and you have incurred expenditure for that, that is also relating to obtaining of the particular loan. So all those items could be considered as your borrowing cost. Now, what is the example for qualifying asset? The standard says inventories may take substantial period of time when the production process has started and it is ready for the intended sale. So one classical example which you can consider is real estate transactions, where the construction is happening over a period of time and then the sale is happening. Or maybe I can take an example from another industry where the inventory, unless if it is kept for a longer period, may not get its selling price increased. For example, in a wine industry, uh, as long as it is being allowed to ferment for a longer period, it takes a better selling price and it will be ready only after a longer period. So in that case, inventory is also considered as a qualifying asset. Uh, any property, plant and equipment normally considered as a qualifying asset if it takes substantial period of time to make it ready for the intended use. So when we are saying PPE, PPE considers building, land also it's there, but land will not take substantial period of time to get ready for the intended sale. So unless it's a real estate transaction, in a real estate transaction, land normally goes into inventory. So factory building, corporate building or administrative building, manufacturing plant, power generation units, intangible assets, investment properties, and even bearer biological asset, bearer plants like tea bushes, coffee plants, rubber trees, palm trees, all those items which take substantial period of time where the actual harvesting can happen. Those items are examples of qualifying asset because it takes substantial period of time for the intended sale or use. Let's take some questions for us to understand whether this particular item has to be treated as part of borrowing cost. Here I am taking an example of interest expenses which has been calculated using effective interest rate method. For the time being, let me tell you that uh, effective interest rate method has to be applied as per Ind AS 109, where certain assets has to be worked on amortized cost. When that calculation has happened, that results in some interest expenditure to be accounted based on the effective interest rate method. Whether that interest expenditure has to be considered for borrowing cost or the contracted interest expenditure, that is, for example, my actual interest cost uh, is based on a percentage, say 8% on the borrowing, but I have incurred certain expenses relating to the loan for which I have already made an upfront payment. For example, I have made a processing fee upfront payment, which I have done. To that extent, what happens is that the actual inflow comes down, whereas the outflow will be one, the payment of the processing fee, and second is that interest on the agreed rates, and the third is what is the repayment of the loan. So the inflows and outflows should be exactly discounted by using a particular rate. That rate is called effective interest rate, and that is the method on which the interest expenditure has to be accounted as per Ind AS 23 as well as Ind AS 109. So if I am accounting an interest expenditure based on effective interest rate method, whether that should be considered as part of my uh, borrowing cost, the answer is yes, it's a borrowing cost. Similarly, when I am doing an amortized cost for certain items of a financial asset as per Ind AS 109, and that results in interest expenditure to be charged as per effective interest rate method, but that interest can be whether that could be included as part of the borrowing cost. The answer for that is also yes, it should also be considered as a borrowing cost. I have trade receivable and I am restating the trade receivable at the end reporting period. There is a loss arising out of that restatement. Whether that exchange rate loss exchange rate difference loss should be accounted as part of my interest cost or borrowing cost? The answer is definitely no, because a trade receivable is not a qualifying asset, and to that extent any exchange rate differences are not to be considered here, but it should be considered as per Ind AS 21. We have already discussed about that. But what is the treatment of exchange rate differences if it is relating to a qualifying asset? Please keep this on the back of your mind, and we will definitely discuss this aspect as well when we are going to discuss the principles of um, how to deal with the amortization of exchange rate differences. We will discuss that also as part of this particular topic. Okay, I'm applying Ind AS 116, which is relating to leases, where it says that you have to consider the entire minimum lease payments which are going to be paid over the non-cancelable lease period, discounted for time value of money or net present value of the future minimum lease payment should be capitalized as the lease asset with a corresponding credit to lease liability. That lease liability being a liability or loan, it should be having a cost or interest which has to be attributable to that lease liability. And what is the accounting treatment to that particular interest cost? Whether it will be considered as borrowing cost? The answer is yes, it's also a borrowing cost. We said that we will keep it for the time being. What happens if there is exchange rate differences which is arising out of loans taken for construction or production or acquisition of a qualifying asset? Let us take this example. I am taking a external commercial borrowing for the purpose of constructing a property, plant and equipment. When I am settling the loan or repayment of, I'm making repayment of the loan, as well as at the reporting period I am supposed to restate the loan according to Ind AS 21. When I restate, there is a loss which arises. How to treat that loss? That exchange rate differences is a loss, whether that loss is a borrowing cost. This standard specifically says as long as the exchange rate differences are considered to be an adjustment of the borrowing cost, then it should also be considered as a borrowing cost. What is adjustment of the interest cost? I will explain it a little bit now, and we will take some example. You have to consider what should be my interest cost if I am borrowing in INR, local currency. Compare that with the exchange rate differences plus the interest exchange rate differences. Suppose if exchange rate differences plus the interest paid on foreign currency loan. So maybe I might have considered 3% interest in foreign currency, and I have incurred a loss of, say, for example, 4% on foreign exchange differences. Totally, I have incurred a cost of 7%. If I borrow the similar amount in INR, what would be my interest rate, or what is my interest outflow, assuming that it's 8%. So the foreign currency loan has only 3% interest rate, and the loss on exchange differences is 4%. Put together, my total cost is 7% for raising a foreign borrowing. Whereas in INR, if I have taken that borrowing, it will result in at 8%. So in that case, the entire exchange rate differences is considered as an adjustment of interest cost. Otherwise, if I have taken in INR, I might have incurred the entire amount as interest cost. Since I have taken it in foreign currency, I am incurring that as portion of that amount as an exchange rate differences. So both the interest on foreign currency loan plus the exchange rate differences on foreign currency loan should be compared with what is the interest payable on local borrowing. If the local borrowing cost is higher than the interest cost payable on the foreign currency loan plus the exchange rate differences, then the entire exchange rate differences will be considered as an adjustment of the borrowing cost, and it says that it should be considered as per this particular standard. On seeing this bullet, maybe you are surprised whether there is a typo error. Why dividend has to be considered? Why we should even have a question on dividends? Dividend is an appropriation of profit. Why should we talk about that as a cost in the first place? In the first place, whether we have to consider that as a cost? That may be the possible question which may be coming to our mind, but I should tell you one thing, that as per Ind AS, if it is redeemable preference shares, that redeemable preference shares is considered as a financial liability. When we discuss Ind AS 32, we will explain this concept at length. For the time being, you just assume that any redeemable preference shares is considered as a financial liability, and accordingly, any dividend paid on the financial liability or the redeemable preference share should also be considered as borrowing cost according to the standard on Ind AS 109 and Ind AS 32. Very, very peculiar situation as per Ind AS. So even dividends paid on a redeemable preference shares will be considered as a borrowing cost. You may also ask a question, sir, you are talking about redeemable preference shares. Suppose if it is convertible preference shares, what you will do? So again, 109 says, or I should say more than 109, Ind AS 32 says how a compound financial instrument has to be split between financial liability and equity component. Any dividend attributable to the equity component will be still treated as a dividend. Any dividend which is attributable to the financial liability component should be part of the borrowing cost. We will discuss that type of discussion in Ind AS 32. At this point of time, we just simply say if a particular instrument has been considered as a financial liability, the related dividend should also be considered as a borrowing cost. This you have to keep it as your principle. So we said no exchange rate differences to be included as an adjustment of the borrowing cost. Let us understand what is that principle is. The principle says that exchange rate differences should be included as borrowing cost to that extent the exchange loss does not exceed the difference between the cost of borrowing in functional currency or the local currency compared to the cost of borrowing in a foreign currency. What is cost of borrowing? Cost of borrowing is all the borrowing cost which is incurred. When it's a local currency or functional currency, you don't have any exchange rate differences, so it's only pure borrowing cost and any other cost related to obtaining the loan. Whereas in respect of borrowing in a foreign currency, what it happens is the forex losses is also attributable to the particular borrowing. So that is also cost of borrowing. So your cost of borrowing will be interest payable on foreign currency loan plus the exchange differences loss compared to the borrowing cost with respect to the functional currency loan, which is nothing but the actual borrowing cost plus any other expenditure directly attributable to that. If the exchange loss does not exceed the difference of the cost of borrowing in functional currency when compared to borrowing in foreign currency, then that exchange loss is considered as borrowing cost. In simple terms, 10% is the cost of borrowing in functional currency, 4% is the interest cost in foreign currency. Exchange differences loss comes to another 4%. 4 plus 4 is the cost of borrowing in a foreign currency. This difference between 8% and 10% is considered as adjustment of borrowing cost with respect to exchange rate differences. Suppose if I have already considered some unrealized exchange gain as an adjustment to the interest, that should also be considered as part of adjustment to the interest here. So that means if once I have adopted capitalization of this, in case if I am getting a gain, to that extent, I have already recognized an exchange loss as part of the interest. So then to that extent, it will be reduced. But let us try to understand this by means of an example that will be better for you. Maybe one or two examples we will take. I'm taking one example from the CA final examination. Here what it says is that ABC Limited has taken a loan of 20,000 US dollar on 1st of April for constructing a plant. So naturally, when we are talking about construction of a plant, we assume that it's a qualifying asset. Rate is 5% per annum, which is payable on an annual basis. On 1st of April, the exchange rate is 1 US dollar is equivalent to 45 rupees. On the reporting date, that is 31st March, it is 48 rupees per US dollar. So there is a loss of 3 rupees per US dollar. So there is 20,000 into 3, 60,000 US dollar is actually lost exchange rate due to exchange rate differences. What to do with that loss of 60,000? What it says is that if I'm taking the loan in the functional currency, that's a local currency, the interest rate will be 11% per annum from 1st of April. So now we have to identify what is the cost of borrowing as per the local currency or functional currency, and what is the cost of borrowing when I am taking a loan in in foreign currency. Let us try to understand what is my interest payable. My cost of borrowing is 20,000 US dollar, on which 5% is payable. So US dollar at 1,000. But what is the settlement price? It is not 45 rupees. It is on the year end because I am accumulating in the balance sheet. So to that extent, it is 48 into 1,000 US dollar. The total interest which I have to pay is 48,000 rupees according to foreign currency loan. And what is the change in the value of liability? I have $20,000. Originally, I have taken the loan at 45 per dollar, whereas now it is 48. So 48 minus 45 into 20,000 comes to another 60,000 rupees of difference. So the first is interest cost, second is exchange loss. So both put together is my cost of borrowing in a foreign currency. What is my cost of borrowing in Indian currency? It is 20,000 into 48 or 45, because I have taken the loan on the opening date. So in Indian currency, equivalent amount I might have taken is 20,000 US dollar into 45 into 11%, which is 99,000. If I have taken a local borrowing, I will pay 99,000 rupees as an expenditure towards interest. Whereas in this case, I have incurred 48,000 plus 60,000, 108,000 has been incurred because I have taken in a foreign currency. Now what to do with that? What the standard says? It says foreign currency losses, to that extent it is considered as an adjustment, is nothing but what is the difference of interest in borrowing currency, in foreign currency and the local currency. In local currency it is 99,000 rupees and in foreign currency it's 48,000 rupees. So it is 51,000 rupees is the difference. But what I have said, there is a loss of 60,000. Can I take the entire 60,000 as part of the borrowing cost? It says only to that extent there is an excess amount which you have incurred if you have borrowed in local currency compared to the foreign currency. To that extent, it is considered as an adjustment of interest cost. In this case, 51,000 rupees is an adjustment of interest cost out of the exchange loss of 60,000. So what will happen? The total borrowing cost to be capitalized in respect of the qualifying asset will be the interest paid on the foreign borrowing, which is 48,000, that is $20,000 into 5% into our 48 rupees per dollar. That's a 48,000 rupees. And also exchange rate differences to that extent considered as an adjustment of interest cost, as we have identified here. That is actual interest payable when you made borrowing in local currency minus what is the borrowing cost you have incurred on what is the borrowing cost you have incurred on the uh, foreign currency loan. That is as an adjustment of exchange rate differences considered as borrowing cost. So the total borrowing cost to be capitalized is interest plus this adjustment of the exchange rate differences, that is 99,000 rupees will be capitalized. Simply put, it is equivalent to the cost of borrowing in local currency. That is a cross check which you can always do. But what is the total amount of loss which we have made out by taking this foreign currency loan? One is 48,000 plus 60,000. 108,000 rupees is what we have lost. But we are capitalizing only 99,000. What happens to the balance 9,000? That will be considered as exchange rate differences as per Ind AS 21. Any exchange rate differences which is not considered as an adjustment of borrowing cost should be charged to the profit and loss account as per Ind AS 21. So the entire amount will goes to the P&L account to the extent of 9,000 rupees. So even though the exchange loss is 60,000, only 9,000 is considered as exchange loss as per Ind AS 21. The balance amount is considered as an adjustment of borrowing cost and is within the scope of Ind AS 23. You have to be very, very clear on this. Repeated questions, repeated adjustments will come in the financial statement on this. I have seen in many cases this is a normal scenario. Is it enough to have only one example? I thought let us make one more example for us to understand. Here, this company takes a loan of, okay, it's almost the same calculation. In this case, only the year has changed and all the numbers are also remaining the same, right? So accordingly, we will ignore that. I think there is a error in this calculation also. The numbers which has been considered is 25,500 will be treated as interest component. That is this amount, if I am not wrong, it is not 10,000, it should be only 5,000. Then only this answer is correct. Maybe when people are working out this number, they might have taken the balance as 50%, but original loan has been taken at 10,000. It's a typo error. You have to read this as 5,000 US dollar, then your calculation will be equivalent to the interest which will be considered in local currency will be 49,500 rupees, and the interest payable will be 5,000 into 5% into 48 will be 24,000, and loss on exchange rate differences is actually 48 minus 45 into 5,000, which is 30,000. So 54,000 comes as a cost, but you can take at the maximum of only 24,000 minus 49,500, which will be considered as an adjustment of interest. So not entire 30,000 will be taken as the exchange rate difference or borrowing cost. Only 25,500 will be eligible for capitalization as borrowing cost under Ind AS 23, and 4,500 will be treated as an exchange loss as per Ind AS 21. Please read this example with 5,000 US dollar. Then you will have the answer correct according to this illustration. What is the recognition principle? So when we said that if it is directly attributable to the cost of a qualifying asset, we have to capitalize, otherwise we have to charge off as expenditure. But one point which they are saying is that you cannot exceed the amount of borrowing cost incurred during that period. That is the reason why in our example also, even though the total amount of loss is 40,000 plus 68,000, 108,000, what we have actually capitalized is only 99,000, because that is the actual borrowing cost considered to be incurred during that period. You cannot calculate and come out with a different number. It is very difficult to have a situation like that. But in case of foreign currency loan, there is a possibility of we making an error. That's the reason why I said your check should always be that what is the interest payable as per INR. That should be the maximum amount which will be coming as the interest charge to the P&L account. Others will be going to Ind AS 21. So you have to be keeping that in your mind. Two conditions for borrowing cost to be capitalized. We said it's a qualifying asset. Asset should normally have two categories, two characteristics. One, it should result probably in an economic benefits over a period of time, and the cost of the asset should be reliably measured. Then it becomes an asset, and the asset should have substantial period of time for ready for the intended use or intended sale. Then it becomes a qualifying asset. Then the borrowing cost can be capitalized. Otherwise, you have to charge it off to the P&L account. The principle is very simple. That's what we have started talking about it. Additional principle which we have said is the total amount of borrowing cost during the year cannot exceed, or during the year which has to be capitalized cannot exceed the total borrowing cost. Maybe the entire borrowing cost is eligible for capitalization, or only a portion of that borrowing cost will get eligible for capitalization. You cannot have more than the actual borrowing cost incurred. Now, let's take an example. The company has invested in some investment for which it has also taken a loan. So it took a loan and that made an investment out of it. So it says that this investment is a qualifying asset. So I will actually add the borrowing cost to the asset. Two things. First of all, what we are trying to say is that it should be a qualifying asset where construction or production or acquisition of a qualifying asset which takes substantial period of time. Whether investment takes a substantial period of time for getting it ready for the intended sale, no. The moment I purchased it, it can be ready for intended sale. And to that extent, it is not a qualifying asset. This accounting treatment is not considered as part of borrowing cost. Let's take one more example. The entity does not have any borrowings, but it has internal cash accruals that has been used to construct a qualifying property, plant, and equipment. So what it is trying to say is that if the cash is not being used for construction, I will earn interest. And accordingly, that notional interest, they wanted to treat that as a borrowing cost and wanted to capitalize that in the cost of the asset. Is it possible? No, for a simple reason. The capitalization of borrowing cost cannot be more than the actual cost incurred by the entity. So here no cost has been incurred. And another point is also when we are talking about the scope exclusion, it said that actual or imputed cost of equity should be ignored. It cannot be part of borrowing cost. That is also a specific scope exclusion which we have seen. So based on both the conditions, it is not possible to capitalize a notional interest on the internal cash accruals which has been used for funding a project, even if it is a qualifying asset. When we are talking about capitalization, if it is specific borrowing, the actual borrowing cost incurred less any income on temporary investment of the borrowed funds will be capitalized. We have seen this temporary investment of borrowing funds, income arising out of temporary investment. I've taken a term loan. I made an advance for my vendors, but the full payment is not due. So, but I have surplus funds out of the term loan. So, instead of losing money, I have put it in a temporary fixed deposit. Interest income is arising out of it. So, the borrowing cost to be capitalized is total interest payable on the term loan minus the interest income on temporary investment of the borrowed funds. So, that is treated as a eligible amount to be capitalized. If it is specific borrowing, I have to take that specific borrowing is taken for the specific purpose of acquiring, constructing, or producing a particular asset. Now, suppose if I say, no, I cannot identify one-to-one relationship, but I have loans, many loans I have. And because I have many loans, including working capital limits, I might have used the borrowing funds. And accordingly, it is considered as a general borrowing. In that case, can I say what is the total interest paid on all the general borrowings is capitalizable? The standard says no. If it is a general borrowing, you have to identify what is the capitalization rate. Using that capitalization rate, you apply on your borrowings outstanding for the period for which it is outstanding, work out that interest which is eligible for capitalization. So specific borrowing, no question. Whatever interest which I have incurred, that minus the interest on surplus funds deposited will be eligible for capitalization. On the other case, if it is a general borrowing, I cannot directly link it with my borrowing, and accordingly I have to identify what is the capitalization rate. How to calculate the capitalization rate? Very simple process. It simply says what is the total borrowing cost incurred during the period minus what is attributable to specific borrowing. Say 2 lakh is the total interest which has been incurred during the period, out of which term loans taken for specific purposes of a machinery is say 50,000. General borrowing cost is nothing but total borrowing cost of 2 lakh minus specific borrowing cost of 50,000, 1 lakh 50,000. That should be divided by weighted average total general borrowing excluding the specific borrowing. So that means what is the total borrowing which is outstanding, but the outstanding may be weighted for the period for which it is outstanding. It may be taken in October 1st, then 6 months is the loan is outstanding. Weightage will be for 6 months, 6 divided by 12. If it is taken on the 1st of April, it may be for 12 months, full year, 12 by 12. But that total general borrowing which I have calculated on weighted average minus the specific borrowing, because the specific borrowing and specific borrowing cost has been separately considered, so that should be eliminated. That will give me the capitalization rate. Okay, nothing but general borrowing cost divided by weighted average cost of general borrowing. That gives me the capitalization rate. Using this capitalization rate, I have to identify what is the general borrowing. Into that percentage is the amount which has to be capitalized as the borrowing cost on general borrowing. Let us take one or two examples to understand this concept. First, let us take this example. So here what happens? It is not one single loan. They have three loans. 18% bank loan, 16% term loan, and 14% debenture. Three loans are there. And the date on which they have taken or the amount outstanding for each of the period is also given. And the reporting period is 31st March. And the amount outstanding at 31st March is also given. Now, what we have to see, what it says is that the 14% debenture was issued to fund the construction of the office building, but the development activities has not yet started. Okay, so that means it is not considered as a actual borrowing cost for the purposes of capitalization. We will see why it is not considered eligible for capitalization, because the related cost itself is not incurred. Cost of development of the asset is not incurred, so it is not eligible for capitalization. Commencement date has to be postponed. Let's see what it says. On 1st of April, it started constructing the plant using the existing borrowings, and the expenditure which has been spent are 5 lakh and 25 lakh and on various dates. 1st of April is 5 lakh and the balance is on January. And what it's implied is that here the borrowing cost is not specific borrowing, so it's a general borrowing. So we have to calculate what is the loan outstanding. What it says is that what is the actual interest payable on general borrowing. So 18% on whatever amount outstanding based on the weighted period, divided by what is the weighted average cost of the assets created using the general borrowing. So here what we are creating is, they have said the drawdown is 5 lakh and 25 lakhs. One is drawn for the full year and 25 lakhs has been drawn for only 3 months. Okay, so let us work out what is this works out to. And the capitalization rate we set is that interest payable on the borrowing divided by the total general borrowing. In our case, it is 1 lakh into 18% and 10 lakhs into 18% and 30 lakhs into 16%. That is the total interest payable on general borrowing. And the total amount outstanding is 10 lakhs plus 30 lakhs, which is 40 lakhs. So that is divided, used as a denominator, and we arrive at 16.5% as the borrowing, general borrowing rate. That 16.5% is applied on the total outstanding of the loan. 5 lakhs is outstanding for the entire period, so 5 lakh into 16.5%, and 25 lakhs is outstanding only for 3 months, so we are calculating for 16.5% for only 3 months, and that is the amount of 1.85 lakhs which has to be capitalized. As far as the other item is concerned, this debenture is not eligible for capitalization because the related development activities itself has not commenced, so it should be charged to the profit and loss account. That is, the commencement of capitalization condition is not fulfilled. We will see what are all the conditions later, but for the time being, you understand that since it is not utilized for development of an asset, it is not eligible for capitalization. So this is one simple understanding. Whatever we are discussing, we are saying general borrowing cost divided by weighted average of general borrowing, that gives the capitalization rate, multiplied by the general borrowing is the amount eligible for capitalization as per general borrowing cost principle. Let us take maybe one more example. Almost similar, but little bit of additional information is available. Here it says it's 11 lakhs is the total contract for capitalization, and it started in July 2018, completed in June 2019. What we are saying, substantial period of time should be spent in the construction of the asset, otherwise it is not a qualifying asset. So in this case, it's almost 1 year, and accordingly 1 year and 1 month almost, right? So 1 year. So 1 year, it becomes a qualifying asset. What are all the payments which has been made during the year? So July 2018, 1 lakh rupees paid, 30th September, 3 lakhs paid, 31st March 2019, the amount has been paid, 6 lakhs. So totally 11 lakhs has been paid over a period of time. What is the amount of borrowing which has been there? 10% bond which matures over a period of 4 years, and it's a simple interest specifically for the project. So it's a combination of specific borrowing as well as general borrowing. Total debt outstanding is 3.5 lakhs and interest expenditure is interest income on surplus funds is 10,000. So we are getting a question which has general borrowing, specific borrowing, and also surplus income arising out of the amount invested, income arising out of the surplus funds being invested. Second is 12.5% redeemable debentures over 10-year period. The amount outstanding is also given, and 10% bond which is redeemable with 10 years, and the amount outstanding is also given. So calculate the borrowing cost to be capitalized. So here we have to see general borrowing, what is the amount to be capitalized, specific borrowing, what is the amount to be capitalized, and what is the amount to be netted off against the income generated out of surplus fund investment. Okay. So in this case, let us move on with answering this question. First, we have concluded that it's a qualifying asset, so it's eligible for capitalization. Any expenditure incurred on a qualifying asset towards borrowing cost is capable of being capitalized, both specific borrowing and the general borrowing. First, the expenditure has to be allocated to the specific borrowing, and the balance will be assumed to be funded by the general borrowing. So let us understand 1 lakh rupees which has been incurred, whether it has to be allocated to general borrowing. No, because we said that 1 lakh rupees is funded straight away by what do you call, 1 lakh rupees is the initial payment, but 3.5 lakhs is the total amount which has been taken as of June 2019. So in that case, that 1 lakh rupees is nothing but our specific borrowing. So I have not allocated anything on that. And the balance 3 lakhs which has been paid, I assume that out of this 3.5 lakhs, already I have considered 1 lakh, balance is 2.5 lakhs. So 3 lakhs minus 2.5 lakhs gives me 50,000, which has to be allocated to general borrowing. In other words, totally we have incurred 4 lakhs at this point of time, but the specific borrowing is 3.5 lakhs. So balance is allocated to this. And this is outstanding for how much period? September 2018 to June 2019. Okay, so 9 months it is actually outstanding. For the case of the next one, 6 lakhs, which is for April 2019 to June 2019, it is for 3 months. June 2019, it's taken only in that period, so there is nothing is outstanding. So what is the weighted average interest payable for that particular period? This is weighted average amount of interest. So it comes to totally 1.87 lakhs of interest which has to be paid on the general borrowing. So specific borrowing is fully utilized, that we have seen, and how the interest has to be arrived at. So we have 12.5% debenture on which 12.5% is the interest, so 62,500, and the 10% bond I will incur 75,000, but total cost which I have incurred is only 1.37 lakhs. But the weighted cost of capital borrowing is coming to 1.87. How we are supposed to calculate the rate? It says what is the weighted average rate of interest paid divided by weighted average of your loan outstanding. So first of all, our total interest paid on the general borrowing is 1.37 lakhs divided by the total loan outstanding, which is giving me 11%. What is the amount to be capitalized? Is nothing but my general borrowing is outstanding on a weighted average basis 1.87 lakhs based on the utilization, on which I have to apply 11%, which is 20,625. On specific loan, it is 32,500 rupees. So total amount is 53,125, which is an outflow, but there is an interest income of 10,000. So net interest eligible for capitalization is 43,125. So what happens? We are trying to identify what is the weighted average loan outstanding, which is 1.87. Even though 11 lakhs is the total amount, but the amount drawn down is only 1.87, on which 11% is payable. That amount comes to 20,625. How that 11% has been arrived at? This is arrived at as the total interest payable on general borrowing divided by the total general borrowing outstanding. That is 1.37 lakhs divided by 12.5 lakhs, nothing but that these two loans are general borrowing, that is at 12.5. Okay. So now you know, when there is allocation of specific borrowing and general borrowing, specific borrowing has to be allocated first to the cost of construction of the asset, and the balance has to be allocated to the general borrowing. For the general borrowing, you have to find out the weighted average amount outstanding, on which you have to apply the capitalization rate. The capitalization rate is derived by dividing the total interest paid on general borrowing divided by the total amount outstanding on general borrowing. That gives you the capitalization rate. Any interest income which has been derived by investing the loans for a temporary period, that should be reduced and the balance amount is capitalizable, provided this asset is a qualifying asset. In our example, it takes 1 year, so we have considered that as a capitalizing qualifying asset. Now, let's move on to some of the question. Here, what it says that general borrowing has been used for financing the qualifying asset. However, cash flow from operating activities are sufficient to finance the capital expenditure. Nothing but income from operations. When you prepare a cash flow statement, the cash flows from operating activities is enough for the purposes of spending on your investment in property, plant, and equipment, a qualifying asset during the period. So the argument which the management says is that since I have internal accrual, even though I have general borrowing, I will not apply any capitalization. I will simply treat the entire item to be charged to the profit and loss account. Whether it is possible, not possible, because capitalization is not an option given. And another thing is, the moment you have a general borrowing, you have to use a capitalization rate to capitalize the identify the capitalizable borrowing cost, and that should be capitalized. So you have to necessarily identify a general borrowing and the related capitalization rate. Applying that capitalization rate for the weighted average amount of general borrowing outstanding, that amount should be capitalized in respect of the qualifying asset. You cannot simply say I have enough cash accrual, so I will not capitalize this. I will charge to P&L. Not possible. Let's take one more example. There is an investment income on specific borrowing. Whether it has to be deducted in arriving at the total borrowing cost to be capitalized, we have already seen, yes, it should be done like that. And suppose if the investment has been made not out of general specific borrowing, but it is made out of general borrowing, whether it has to be reduced? The answer is no. Only if the loan has been taken as a specific borrowing and surplus funds have been invested, you have to reduce from specific borrowing cost. Whereas if it is invested out of your general borrowing, it is not eligible for reduction. Suppose specific borrowing remains outstanding even after a qualifying asset is ready for the intended use. For example, I have taken a loan of 10 lakhs for construction of two qualifying asset. One asset has completed, say, by 31st December, whereas the year end is 31st March, and another asset is yet to be completed. What I have to do with a portion of the specific borrowing attributable to the entire qualifying asset? One thing is, up to the date where the asset is ready for the intended use, specific borrowing for a specific asset should be treated as a specific borrowing cost. Once the asset is ready for the intended use, then the capitalization on that particular asset has to be stopped. But the specific borrowing will now become a general borrowing for the remaining 3 months period in respect of the other qualifying asset. For the other qualifying asset, you have to see the specific borrowing plus the general borrowing. Both cost has to be accumulated and capitalized with respect to the second one, which is still ready. So that's what here it says. Specific borrowing remains unpaid after a qualifying asset for which it is raised is ready for the use. It is already ready. But there are other qualifying assets which are under development. Then the specific borrowing is considered as part of your general borrowing. People will say, I have already funded this entire amount by means of my whatever I have drawn, it is already invested, but I have not repaid it. So it is considered to arrive at your general borrowing capitalization rate. That's a peculiar thing which we normally miss it. It comes as part of that discussion. Normally, when I capitalize a borrowing cost, it results maybe in a temporary difference. So I am getting some tax benefit. Whether the deferred tax has to be reduced in capitalization of this, the answer is no, because the taxes are dealt separately and not part of it. Let's take one example for us to understand, maybe for the purposes of more clarity. Here we are saying 9% loan of 30 lakhs has been taken as 9% at 9% for two qualifying asset. Here, one for the purpose of factory as well as office building. The loan facility was availed on 1st of April and was utilized as follows, with remaining fund invested temporarily at 7%. So sometimes for examination questions will be like that. What is the surplus funds? You don't know. And they have only given certain information. Like we do a single entry accounting, we have to derive certain items and identify. Let us go with the concept of Ind AS 23. The first concept which we have to see is that, first of all, is it a qualifying asset? In the question itself, they have said it's a qualifying asset. And what is the borrowing cost and the interest income? Total borrowing is 30 lakhs. That is for office building as well as the other one, both put together. Sorry, yeah, the heading is wrong. So 15 lakhs, 10 lakhs for factory and 20 lakhs for office building. Total building is 30 lakhs, on which interest payable is 9%, which is 2.7 lakhs, because the loan has been taken on 1st of April itself. So for the full period, it is outstanding. Temporary investment, total, what is the temporary investment? Total borrowing is 30 lakhs, out of which actually the amount invested in 1st April 2019 is only 15 lakhs, right? So for 6 months, it is only 15 lakhs. And the surplus funds which is available from 1st April 2019 to September 30, 2019 is for 6 months, 15 lakhs is available, because the total loan taken is 30 lakhs minus 15 lakhs, which is outstanding available for 6 months. Interest is 7%, which we have been shown on the deposit, which is invested at 7%. So it gives 15 lakhs gives me at 7% for 6 months, 52,500. So we have identified what is the borrowing cost and what is the interest income. Then we will move on. What is the amount to be capitalized? We have to capitalize net of the borrowing cost minus the interest income. That is what we are saying. 2,70,000 minus 52,500, 2,17,500. How it has to be allocated? Based on actual amount spent on the specific qualifying asset. In this case, it is if you see, it is 1:2 ratio. On that basis, it has been done, because one was the investment is 10 lakhs and another is 20 lakhs. So 1:2 is the ratio on which it has been allocated to the two qualifying asset. So factory building actual cost incurred is 10 lakh rupees, plus borrowing cost to be capitalized is 72,500. So 10 lakh 72,500 will be the year end amount. Similarly, office building will be 21.45. Put together is 32 lakh 17,500. Nothing but what we have spent plus what is the interest for the period. Okay, so very clear how we are doing this. So even if informations are not available from the concept, you have to pick it up, order all the items required for you to ascertain what is the amount to be capitalized. And for that purpose, we have done this working notes and finally capitalized the amount according to this particular example. Here the company says, I have 20% fund raised by equity and 80% raised by loan, but both are utilized for the purposes of my qualifying asset. How I have to fund this? And what they say is that since I have taken only 80% for the purposes of qualifying asset, I will only take 80% of this for capitalization purposes, and balance I will charge to P&L. Not possible, because you have to consider the borrowing rate, that the general borrowing rate has to be applied on the total borrowing and not only 80%, because whatever is the total amount of general borrowing outstanding, on which you have to apply the capitalization rate. That's what we have seen before. What is the period of capitalization? It says it should commence when the capitalization is eligible to be commenced. Let's see that. It has to be suspended when active development is suspended, and it has to be ceased when the asset is ready for the intended use or sale. Let's go into the commencement. Three conditions to be satisfied cumulatively, then only you are eligible to start capitalizing the borrowing cost. Expenditure should be incurred with respect to the qualifying asset. Borrowing cost should also be included, otherwise zero is what is the amount to be capitalized. And the activities ready for preparing the asset for the intended use or sale, that the construction activity or production activity has also started. These are cumulative conditions. All the three conditions has to be satisfied. Only after all the three conditions are satisfied, that will be the date of commencement of capitalization. Let's take one example, then we will understand. A new project which is a qualifying asset. What is the date of commencement of the date of capitalization? What four dates are given where they are saying on 18th of April, interest has been incurred, started to incur. May 14, the expenditure on the project has been incurred. But actual activities relating to the construction started only on August 11, 2019. The project is being reviewed by the project manager on July 18, 2019. There are four dates which are there. Let's go back to the previous slide. It says only when the entity incurs expenditure for the asset, it incurs the borrowing cost and undertakes the activity necessary for preparing the asset for the intended use, which is cumulative condition. So it started incurring on April 18. A project expenditure has been incurred, started to be incurred on May 14th, and only on August 11 it started the construction related activities. So only on this date all the three conditions are satisfied. So the interest capitalization should start on August 11, 2019. Cumulative condition is what we are supposed to see. When it has to be suspended, it says when the extended period where the active development of a qualifying asset has been suspended during that period, where there is an abnormal delay in development of the asset, then we have to suspend it. Suppose if there is a temporary delay which is required, for example, when I'm saying I'm constructing a factory shed and due to some notice issued by the pollution control board or maybe environmental department, I have to stop constructing the particular item for nearly 2 years. It is an extended period where I have suspended the active development of the qualifying asset. During that 2-year period, I cannot capitalize the borrowing cost. I have to charge it to the P&L during that suspended period. On the other case, there is a temporary delay. For example, when I am saying that I have put a basement, but I have to wait for minimum 21 days where it will settle, and then I have to construct further. Whether the 21 days is considered as period for which suspension of capitalization to be done? No, it is temporary delay which is necessary as part of the process of getting the asset ready for the intended use. So that is not considered as part of your suspension of capitalization. You will continue to capitalize. Let's take some example for understanding this concept. In this case, the commencement loan has been availed on 1st of April 2018, but due to high water levels, due to flood in that geographical region, it has stopped suspension of that. During the suspended period, whether the amount of capitalization is required to be done or not. Here again, I think there is a typo error. It should be B limited and not Z limited. What happens? In this case, what we are trying to say is that if it is extended period of suspension of active development, whereas it is a very common in geographical location. That means it's a temporary and it is well known, and accordingly suspension of capitalization is not required. We can continue to capitalize the borrowing cost. C limited for 20 days for some technical reasons, like what I have explained. Maybe it has to be curing, or it has to be some soil test has to be done, or whatever. During the 20 days, whether it has to be stopped, it's a temporary, it's not abnormal delay, so capitalization need not be suspended. Here I have ordered a machine to be imported from China. There are some crises in China. Because of that, I could not install the machinery, and the related construction activity has been stopped for more than 6 months for want of space which is required to be imported from China. In that case, whether the 6 months is considered as an extended period where the active development is not happening, yes, it's an abnormal delay, and accordingly borrowing cost cannot be capitalized during that particular period. It's suspended from active development. So we have to see whether it is extended period where active development is not happening, or otherwise it can continue to capitalize the borrowing cost. Otherwise it has to suspend. When it has to be ceased, where substantially all the activities ready for the intended use or sale is complete, not put to use, ready for the intended use is done, we have to stop capitalization of the borrowing cost. For the remaining period, the borrowing cost will be charged to P&L. Suppose if it is constructed in parts, so 2 units of the factory building is ready, another 2 floors are not yet ready. The 2 floors has been ready for the intended use and it can be used. The entity has to stop capitalizing for the proportionate cost of the 2 floors, and the balance will be considered as continuing as a qualifying asset under development, and you can capitalize it. So parts proportionate portion will be stopped or ceased to be capitalized. So in this case, what we are saying, I think again, it is only saying that a commercial complex with various offices which can be rented out, it completely ready and ready for the rent let out on 30th June itself. But unfortunately, due to adverse market conditions, only 10% was occupied and the balance is not occupied. And entity believes that 10% is not the intended use, 100% is what is the intended purpose for which I constructed. So accordingly, I will continue to capitalize the entire borrowing cost and I will not stop on 30th June. Is it correct? Totally incorrect, because the asset is substantially ready for the intended use. But uh, the fact that only a small portion has been rented out is irrelevant for the purpose of continuing the capitalization. Uh, Interestingly, ICDS is talking about date put to use. So that is something unique. Here it's ready for the intended use. So what is happening here, constructing a machinery, it is taken from bank loan and carrying amount is 3 lakh, recoverable amount is 2,80,000, amount to be capitalized during the construction period is 10,000. What is the amount to be capitalized? So if you see this fact pattern, what you are trying to see is that I am developing a qualifying asset, but whereas actual amount available, what is the recoverable amount available for the finished product itself is 2,80,000 only. So in that case, what I have to do? So impairment testing has to come. Impairment testing, not necessarily when the asset is fully ready, but even during the construction you have to do. But the interesting point is, first the interest has to be capitalized and then you have to test it for impairment. So it becomes 3 lakh plus 10,000, 3 lakh 10,000 minus 2 lakh 80,000. The 30,000 will be charged to the profit and loss account as an impairment loss. 10,000 is capitalized. It is not borrowing cost to be charged to P&L. It should be capitalized. But 30,000 will be coming to the P&L as an impairment loss as per Ind AS 36, not as per Ind AS 23. So suppose if the qualifying asset is constructed by a third party, Whether advances paid to the third parties is also considered as the amount invested on qualifying asset goes without saying, because that is also expenditure on the qualifying asset, so it is also eligible for capitalization. With that, we have concluded the active portion of the standard. So where we have learned that we are talking about what is borrowing cost, what is qualifying asset, what is general borrowing, what is specific borrowing, what is the amount eligible for capitalization, when it has to be started, when it has to be suspended, when it has to be ceased, and when it has to be charged to P&L. Suppose if I taken a foreign currency loan, what is the amount considered as an adjustment of the capital uh, cost or the borrowing cost? That should also be added to the borrowing cost under this particular standard. Only the balance amount of exchange rate differences goes to Ind AS 21. So all these principles have been fully understood. What now we are very clear what is to be capitalized and what is to be charged to P&L as far as the borrowing cost is concerned. Now let us see what is the differences between AS 16 and Ind AS 23. Ind AS 23 specifically says that if the asset, qualifying asset, is measured at fair value, this standard is not applicable, scope exclusion. But there is no specific guidance which has been given, but anyway, the principle will remain the same. Here, in case if it is inventories which are produced in large quantity on a repetitive basis, it specifically says that it is excluded from the scope of this standard. Whereas Ind AS 16 is not specifically talking about, but the accounting treatment will remaining the same. Only if it is qualifying asset, it will be capitalized. This will not be a qualifying asset. So result will be the same. Substantial period of time is not specifically excluded in the standard, left it to the judgment. Whereas in AS 16, there is an explanation of substantial period of time. Ind AS 23 requires what is the capitalization rate which you have applied for the purposes of capitalization of borrowing costs. That should be disclosed as part of the notes on accounts, whereas no such disclosure is required under AS 16. These are all the differences between AS 16 and Ind AS 23. What is the difference between ICDS on borrowing cost and Ind AS? Here what it says is that exchange rate differences which are considered as an adjustment of borrowing cost will be capitalized as part of the borrowing cost as per Ind AS 23, but ICDS is not permitting any such adjustment. If it is a foreign currency differences, they are not allowed to be capitalized. They have to dealt with another standard on forex differences, ICDS on forex differences, which is ICDS 6. Borrowing cost can be capitalized as per Ind AS 23 if it is a qualifying asset which takes substantial time to ready for the intended use. Whereas ICDS defines what are all qualifying asset, where it says only in respect of inventory, substantial period of 12 months is considered. In respect of all other assets like property, plant, equipment, they are considered straight away as a borrowing, as the qualifying asset. Even investment property is considered as a qualifying asset. That means even the loan has been outstanding only for 3 days or 4 days, even for that 4 days, the interest has to be capitalized as per ICDS if it is specific borrowing. Whereas Ind AS 23, only if it takes substantial period of time, it becomes a qualifying asset, then only the capitalization is possible, whether it is inventory for or property, plant, equipment. Whereas ICDS, inventory 12 months, for all other items, there is no specific period. If there is a difference between the date of expenditure and the date of capitalization, put to use actually, it is put to use, you have to capitalize the borrowing cost. That is considered as a qualifying asset. And when you have to cease borrowing cost, when the asset is substantially ready for the intended use. Whereas here, inventories, if it is ready for the intended use, for all other qualifying asset till the date on which the asset is put to use, the capitalization should continue. And we are finding out a capitalization rate or weighted average rate for capitalizing general borrowing, whereas capitalization rate is calculated using a different formula under ICDS. What it says is that you have to multiply the borrowing cost by average cost of qualifying asset divided by average cost of total asset. Okay, you have to do that in that proportion. You have to actually calculate the capitalization rate. Suspension has to be done if there is an extended period of active development is interrupted as per Ind AS 23, but no such suspension. So if I have a qualifying asset till such time it's put to use, even if there is a 3 years delay, the entire amount will be forming part of the cost of the asset, not allowable as an expenditure in the P&L account. Interestingly, Ind AS 23 uses the same concept of substantial period of time for defining an asset as qualifying asset in both the circumstances. That is, one circumstance could be they have taken a specific borrowing or they have taken a general borrowing. In both the scenario, if there is an asset, the qualifying asset will be based on substantial period of time. Whereas in ICDS, if it is general borrowing, we have to consider inventory for 12 months for all other assets from the date on which it is expenditure is incurred and the date on which it is put to use. That will be considered as a period for capitalization. In respect of, so that is a qualifying, straight away it's a qualifying asset. If it is a general borrowing, for the entire assets, ICDS says inventory as well as other assets, it says 12 months is a period which you have to see as a capitalization qualifying period. So general borrowing, it has a different qualifying period. Specific borrowing, it has a different qualifying period as per ICDS, whereas it has the same principle under Ind AS. So what are all the major disclosures? Only two disclosures here. Of course, accounting policy for borrowing cost forms part of the notes and accounts. What is the borrowing cost to be capitalized or borrowing cost capitalized during the period? And what is the capitalization rate used? This is the two things which we have to disclose under this particular standard, along with the accounting policy for borrowing cost, when it is capitalized, when it is charged to P&L. What is the exchange rate differences which are considered as adjustment of borrowing cost? Like this, it is actually going into that. So with this, we are coming to the end of the standard on Ind AS 23. Once again, I thank you for your patient hearing and your valuable inputs, which is pouring in our channel. And as we have discussed, to reach a larger audience, it is better that we ask your friends and your colleagues to subscribe to the channel so that the moment I upload a new video, automatically it goes to them as an intimation and they can start viewing it. Otherwise, they will be under your mercy for sharing that link for the new video which I am uploading. So do share this and do ask your friends and any viewers who are first time viewing this, be a subscriber to our channel. And thank you, and we will meet with one more video on this Ind AS knowledge series video. Until then, stay home, stay safe. Goodbye.